Hello, I'm Aubrey Shepherd, and this is the 28th of February, 2011, or 12, and it's leap year, so there will be a 29 tomorrow. Tom McKinney's here with us again. A couple of weeks ago he was with us, and Tom, let's talk about the National Forest situation.
Yes, sir. We when I was here last time, we talked about a project called the Bearcat Hollow Project over on the Richland Creek drainage in Newton County. And it's a 32,000 acre project that they are going to be basically converting an upland moist hardwood forest into an oak savanna. And it's going to take a lot of logging, a lot of herbicide use, and a lot of burning. And they're doing this under the guise of trying to expand the habitat for the elk that are over on the Buffalo River right now.
Well, now, you were saying that they didn't want to acknowledge that's the purpose of it, but I actually noticed that you were quoted in a Northwest Arkansas Times article a while back that actually had it in the headline.
Correct.
They were doing it for the elk. And so it is public information.
It is public information.
They're not trying to, they're not able to suppress anybody from saying it because it's already been acknowledged.
No, and they talk about it throughout the documentation of the project, but then they say, but basically, not a quote, but they're paraphrasing, well, this is really not why we're doing this.
Yeah.
We're really doing it to try to reestablish a native ecosystem, which is an oak savanna, which means widely spaced trees with an understory of grass.
Right.
And yes, you do
no
have
evidence that's what existed there.
There, you have pockets of it. You know, people around here are familiar with them. The limestone glades, edges of bluff lines, things like that. I mean, they do exist.
And there are specialized species that live on a glade or in a riverbank or way up on a mountain.
Exactly, but they don't cover a contiguously large area covering thousands of acres, and that's what they're trying to claim has happened in the past. And the old Louisiana Purchase land survey records, original Arkansas survey records, do not bear that out. They don't show any extensive use of fire, and the surveyors a lot of times when they did these surveys, this was back in the 1820s and 30s, they would give a description kind of the land they were walking through, and they would indicate certain things they would see. And a lot of times you would have, they'd talk about where tornadoes came through and did blowdowns. They called them hurricanes or hurricanes. They talked about streams, bluff lines. They would give it a description of the ground cover or the understory. And you have a few small areas where they'd mention grassy woods, but they are in the tens of acres and not the thousands of acres.
Well, I know you're right, and I wonder, I know Game and Fish is excited about having elk for people to hunt. They sell licenses. It's like white-tailed deer. 20 years ago and more, they were clearing huge patches in the bottomland woods and in the highland woods to allow deer to have more grassland and mix of things. So, they call them food plots.
Right, and they do have food plots. It's in their forest plans, but they're not supposed to be more than 1 to 4 acres. And you're not supposed to have more than 2 per 640 acres, or 2 per square miles. But again, here they're talking about spending millions, literally millions of dollars, trying to convert a moist upland forest into basically Rocky Mountain habitat.
Well, you know, one of the things that hurts my feelings is that this wood would be burned off, the waste wood that people are allowed to pick up waste wood from the National Forest, down wood. And we know that lots of insects and birds and so forth use that kind of material in the forest. But to just burn it off where you don't really have to, and it's not going to improve the habitat for all the species that are there, that seems sad.
No, and then the other thing, they have some targeted species that they say are going to benefit from this burning and clearing, and one of their species they want to increase the number of is, believe it or not, quail. Now, quail is not an interior forest closed canopy bird. It is a prairie bird and a grasslands bird. So here they're trying to say create quail habitat basically in the Ozarks of Newton County and other places in the forest. And there's plenty of places you can create quail habitat on the edges of the national forest, on the edges of private property, but there's absolutely no reason to be converting these moist upland woods into an oak savanna.
Well, some of the old farms on top of the mountains have pretty good soil that hasn't eroded all the way off, and you can get native prairie plants to grow up there
Very
as you
true.
can in the valleys along where you see the elk over there on the
Exactly.
in the open fields. But no, arbitrarily doing it seems wrong to me. But anyway, it seems like we may be running out of time for this segment. But
yeah, I did bring a picture this is an official Forest Service picture of what they want the woods to look like before and after. If the gentleman can bring it up.
Okay, well, we'll be seeing that when this runs on public television.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I appreciate your being here, and let's take a break now. And until next time, it's Aubrey Shepherd asking you to do your part to help keep the water clean, the air pure, and the woods green. This is the 28th of February 2012, and I want to share some photos from Tanglewood Branch in Fayetteville, Arkansas, just south or just north and northeast of the sale barn property that's being changed to allow student apartments to be built. Tom McKinney is here with us, and Tom of the Sierra Club Conservation effort. You see that stream is Tanglewood. The flow there is coming from downtown Fayetteville, and we're looking upstream, and on your left there you see the little flowway coming between the trees there. It's not a great picture, and I didn't adjust it for contrast, but that's one of many places water comes off. There you're looking south, southeast, downstream, and that same little flow area, and you can see how it cuts through and enters the stream there.
You could also see the water level of the last high water mark with
Well,
trash
that's
in
right.
the sapling.
The trash gets about 12 feet out of the stream bed there at times, or more.
Looked like it was about 3 or 4 foot off the bank.
Yeah. And well, there's I think a pretty piece of sandstone on the other side, but there's also dumped in there all this stuff. Over the years, the city's dumped endless stuff, old signs, old pieces of concrete, gutters, and curb and gutter pieces and all this stuff. What's this do to habitat for wildlife?
Well, first thing that's obvious is it washes it away. Some of the most productive wildlife habitat we have in Arkansas is streamside habitat or riparian habitat.
That one there, now that's looking out through the fence
Yeah.
to the wetland that's just across there, and it also has flow areas coming down from your right to left, and it eventually pass under there to the creek. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, and anytime you get a straight bank cut like we saw in the photos, that is that is the best sign that this is an impaired creek channel, and you're getting massive erosion from water flowing from upstream, and usually the increase of that flow is caused by the paving of a permeable surface, such as soil, with an impermeable surface, parking lots, rooftops, things like that.
Well, guess what? That's what's going out there in the background of this picture. And you see a few trees left there, clearly in the 50-foot riparian zone buffer, so they're not really saving any trees there as trees. And there is a plan for a city trail to go between where I am and that silt fence over there, the black thing, and right next to the parking, and it will be pretty much the same thing you're talking about. Same as a rooftop, same as any other paved surface. And city trails are being built far too close all over Fayetteville.
Well, if the water level gets up as it did in that one picture with the trash up on that sapling, then there's a very good chance that Fayetteville Trail will be inundated.
Well, that's
they're gonna wind up having to go back and repair it.
They want They might repair it if it gets damaged that much, but basically they've actually built trails that repeatedly flood portions of them. And one of them is Skull Creek, where the trail goes under the railroad, and it's way down in the flow area. And the same is true out further on Skull Creek and some other streams. And it's silly. When they made you can see the shale underneath there, and of course more debris that's washed up in the banks. So that debris there is pretty high, pretty close to being up over it.
Well, the best way to prevent this from happening, of course, is to enforce the the streamside buffer zone ordinance, and to just try to have the city planning address that issue. And it is it is something that will happen upstream that will affect folks downstream. I mean, the old adage, we all live downstream, is very true, but particularly in this case, because the more flow you're going to get off of a impermeable surface, the higher the water is going to be, the more violent the flood's going to be, the stronger the current's going to be, and the damage on that stream will just move further and further downstream. And an area that might not look like it's being impacted now, in the future, they will have some serious problems, and people will have their property washed away. It's not uncommon for people to lose 10, 20, and 30 feet of their backyard if it's up against one of these creeks.
Well, I think we're running out of time, but maybe we'll take a ride together and look at some of those places
Sounds
that are
good.
going to be affected by this. Till next time, it's Aubrey Shepherd asking you to do your part to help keep water clean, the air pure, and the woods green. See you.